As a DM, you want to provide the most interesting, entertaining experience to your players. And unfortunately, this sometimes manifests itself as the non-stop action thrill ride, where the players kind of they get on the bus and they just go. So relevant here, I played in a game of Dragon of Ice Fire Peak. Or God, I can never remember the name of that module. I think that's what it's called. Fifth edition game, and this is nothing against the DM running it by any stretch. Please don't take me to be saying that. But the way the campaign was running was okay. I don't know if it's the module either. It might just be the module. The way the campaign was running was okay. There's a town. There's a dragon. We want to protect the town. Beat the dragon. How do we do that? Well, we have like a message board in town that's sending us to different places to gather resources, to gather allies, things like that. And the way the campaign played out was okay, where are we going? Look at the message board. Gnomes? Got it. Gnome City. Deal with the problem there, come back, get our reward, go. Deal with the problem there, come back, go. And it came down to only really one major interaction that we had at all inside of the town. We interacted with like two main characters: the guy who gave us our rewards and some magic item dealer that the DM he's a special character the DM made up. But as a result of that kind of structure, I never really felt fully invested in it. Like, I roleplayed my character to the best of my ability, but the character, I felt like I had to kind of force him to be invested in the story. And I think it's because it's just that kind of campaign doesn't really mesh well with my personal preference for a playstyle. So if you're a DM that's running the non-stop action thrill ride kind of campaign, a little bit of advice: stop and smell the roses. Conversely, another story, another DM I had. This was a homebrew campaign, and we'd been having a lot of action recently, and then some party conflict came up, and we ended up in a city. That the first city we came to, we said, all right, for tonight, splitting up. That's it. We'll meet again tomorrow. We're splitting up tonight. And we all went off and did our own thing. And my rogue ended up with a lot of money early in the game because rogue. And he ended up finding the most off the beaten trail, locals only, good old boys club bar in town. Dropped down his sack of gold, said, I'm buying for the whole bar all night. And they loved it. He hung out, he drank, he met the locals, and he had a great time. And he fell in love with the city. He loved the feel of the city, he loved the people that he met here, and he just said, you know what, I like this place. When all this is said and done, yeah, maybe I'll buy a house here. I like the feel of this place. And that carried on in the rest of the game. The city was put under attack two times throughout the rest of the campaign. And the one time he threw himself into a burning building to save a family because he was like, "No, you don't burn this city. I like this city. This is my city. I'm going to save the people here." Even though he was at that point he was still chaotic neutral, but he was starting to drift a little because he was like it was a little bit selfishly motivated, but he was starting to get more good. Um, and later on, when that city was being burned to the ground, as I mentioned in a previous episode, the city was burned to the ground. That's where I was invested in the story. That's where I said, okay, we're cracking some skulls. They attacked my city. They burned my home. That's it. We're ending this. We are killing these demons. We're sending them back to hell. We're doing whatever we can to make sure this never happens again because they made it personal. And I wouldn't have been able to have that kind of conviction, that kind of involvement with my character if the DM hadn't given us that time to stop and smell the roses. That was a whole session, a whole like 5-6 hour session of no combat at all. Not a single combat encounter that session. The whole session was spent in the city and role playing in the city, and then we ended on the way to the next place. And that was it. And it was awesome. It was a session that I remember. I don't know if the whole party looks back on it that fondly. I remember that was one of my favorite sessions. And it's because it allowed me as a player to interact with this world in more than just the killing way. As in, like, every day, every session, we interact with the DM's game world by killing something. That's how a lot of games are run. And that's so having that moment of like, you know what, tonight you're not killing anything unless you really do something wrong. You're just running around the town. You're doing what you want here, and it's the DM gave us the reins. He didn't say that. He didn't say we're sitting down. We're just in the city tonight. He said, okay, what do you guys want to do in the city? And we ended up spending the whole session in that city, and that's great. That is so great. That ended up being the foundation of the trust that my rogue had in the paladin. That was an unlikely friendship. A, a chaotic neutral pickpocket, and a lawful good paladin. Very unlikely friendship, but that night, because he showed up at the bar later, is kind of what ended up starting the trust that my rogue had in him, despite his stuffy moralizing. There was a moment of like, oh, this guy's pretty okay, and that had very far-reaching consequences for his character in the future of that campaign. So do your players a favor. Give them that moment. Stop and smell the roses. Give them that day of just no combat. Give them that day of just, you're in a town. What do you want to do? And if they're not having it, move it on. Like, that's, if they're the kind of players that don't want that, then you don't have to. But, like, give them the opportunity. I know you'll probably notice a trend by now that I am very big on player agency. My first episode was about giving players agency, or at least the illusion of it, because even if you want them to just have the same things happen in the end, give them an option on how they get there. But it really can't be stated enough that player agency is super important. So when you give the players a time to just do whatever their characters want, that gives the players a reason to care. It gives the players a reason to want to continue the game. It gives them a way to establish a personal connection. From my current campaign, I've got one town that they keep returning to. That's kind of the hub of this campaign, and from there, they're helping. It's like the last bastion of the rebellion against some empire that's leading scorched earth across the continent. And they keep going out, doing other things, coming back to this town. And even the most chaotic players are at least minorly invested in the protection of this city, because a lot of them have made friends here, or have made a life of some sort here. So when they leave the town, they come back. I always ask, okay, what do you guys want to do in the town? And if it's a night where they don't really seem to be having it, okay, anything else? No, we're good to go. We just want to skip this. Okay, let's go. But almost every time we'll have our bard. He's like, I'm gonna go to our house and I'm gonna start answering my fan mail, because he's made quite a name for himself. So he goes back, takes his intern, answers some fan mail, maybe interacts with some fans here and there around the city if they recognize him. Our rogue is the one that has been in the party the longest, so she's made the most friends around here. Every time she says, okay, I'm going to visit my boyfriend, because she started courting one of the young mages at the mages school. Because I'm going to visit my boyfriend, I'm going to visit the dark elf at the shop downtown, and I'm going to visit these friends over here. And she has like a set of 4 or 5 people that she's always like, I want to go here, I want to go here, I want to go here, I want to go here. And we always role play through those. Sometimes other party members come along, sometimes they don't. There's a local dragon that has she's kind of maintained like a distance, being like, look, you stay away from my swamp, I stay away from you guys, it's fine. And the party has become uneasy acquaintances with her, but they always go to her when they come back to say like, hey, if you need anything while we're out, we occasionally go to other countries if there's anything cool you want, and just trying to keep on the dragon's good side and all that. Or for some of them, it's because they legitimately really like the character. They like the character they interact with. But that leads to them being invested in protecting this city as more than just, okay, well, it's the place we go back to. Yeah, it's the place we go back to, but it's also the place where these characters are, and we care about those characters. There's some NPCs that had traveled with the party previously, or that were like escorts or had accompanied them on previous adventures out of the city, that either they weren't originally from there, or they returned to there, or they like made their home there after though they traveled with the party. So the party also has that connection where they're like, well, We know these people. We've traveled with them. We fought alongside these people. These aren't just random people that we met in this city. These are our friends. So it has that extra level of investment and an extra level of actually caring about what happens in the campaign because this city is in danger. I know now I've just used the example of two cities, but it really comes down to anything like that. Interacting with certain people here and there can make you a lot more invested in the story. Um, in when I was playing a monk in college, I had this was an individual session I ended up having because of the fact that my party left me behind. I wasn't there for a session, and the party escaped from the city when it was uh, under attack, and they forgot to bring me. So I ended up left behind. Yeah. So what actually happened? They got teleported out of the city, and the guy was like, "Do you have everyone here?" And they went, "Yeah, we're all here." And this guy goes, "Are you sure?" And the party went, "Yeah, we're here." And then he goes, "Okay." And it wasn't just because I wasn't there. There were actually story reasons for why I wasn't with the party at the time. So it's not just like the DM being a dick. But so I did a short session with him alone just to see how we get out of the city. And that session was zero combat. That session was me exploring this city that had been decimated by this attack and going my own way and stumbling upon some knowledge that drastically shook my character's religion. I was a lawful good monk that was very devoted to Hieronius, god of valor and law, and the knowledge I stumbled upon was that he was a false god. That was in my eyes, at least, technically still god, divine ranks, power, and all that. But it's some new information about this god that basically, in my eyes, painted him as a usurper and made me go, well, I can't worship a dishonorable man like that. He claims to call himself the god of honor, yet he would usurp the throne of a true god. And that's like that had far-reaching consequences for my character. And that was not a non-stop action thrill ride moment. That was a very much stop and smell the roses. You're sitting here, you're alone, you're in this town, it's not under attack anymore, you weathered the assault, whatever. And I'm walking through the ruins of a war-torn city. And that was the whole session. It ended with me leaving. But like that informed everything about my character from that point on, that experience. Because from that point, instead of worshiping the standard human gods, I started worshiping the dragon god of magic and all that. And like there were a bunch of different things that ended up happening as a result of that. That carried on even to a second campaign we played with those same characters at epic level. The things that happened in that one session carried on into that epic campaign. And that's a moment, an aspect of my character that would have been robbed from me had my DM been more of the, well, we need to keep the action going to keep the players interested kind of mindset. So I don't want this to seem like it really does seem like I'm attacking DMs of a certain type. I'm not. I'm really not. Uh, whatever works for your players works. But the only advice I can give, I guess, is to just let them take a breather every now and then. Let them get time to interact with your world, and instead of worrying about making really well balanced combat encounters and interesting combat encounters, think about making interesting NPCs and people they want to interact with. I can do a whole topic on that another day and how that's not actually that hard. But think of ways to make your world more believable and more interesting for them to want to inhabit it, for them to want to look around that city, see what that city has to offer. And that doesn't necessarily mean you need to have like this menagerie of all these crazy exotic humanoids. It can just be having one or two interesting people in the town. One or two people that when they meet them, they're like, "Oh, I like this guy." Because you'll see pretty quickly when you give your players kind of the chance to do something other than combat and to just breathe, take some time, and interact with NPCs, interact with the world around them in ways that aren't even related to the story, in ways that are just related to the character alone, to their their personal relationship with this NPC, you'll see a drastic improvement in how interested the party actually is in your game. And it's a good thing. I don't know what else to say. It's a good thing. um, aside from that, I don't think there's much more I can really say on the topic. Aside from, I really don't know how to end videos. But hope this was insightful in any way to you guys. But I know half of you that are gonna end up watching this gonna be like, yeah, you know, of course, Jim Bob. That's obviously how it is. Duh. But I hope it helps someone. These are just my musings on the topic. I hope it does actually help someone. I hope it does actually make someone think about their DMing style and maybe help to improve them. Um, if it did, or if you liked what you saw here, leave a like, comment, subscribe. It's free. If not, leave a comment anyway and tell me why you didn't like it.